Hello, my crafty friends. Well, today I have a one-sheet wonder of sorts. I'm going to show you how to take all the flowers from a 12 by 12 inch piece of designer paper and use them to create 14 cards. Now, we're going to do this in a two-part series. So today I'm going to show you the first 7, and then during my Sunday morning live, I will show you the last 7. Hi, it's Lynn Dunn from Stamptastic Designs. Thanks so much for joining me today. In this episode of Stamptastic TV, I have 7 different card ideas that I want to share with you that feature one of the patterned papers from the Favored Flowers Designer Series paper pack. So this is a Saleabration paper that you can get for free with a $50 purchase. Now, the cards in this video feature the Fragrant Flowers Bundle from Stampin Up. Now, this particular stamp set has a variety of images that are the exact same images that are in this piece of designer paper. The bundle also includes a die set, which of course coordinates with this stamp set. But these 2 dies right here coordinate with the designer series paper. So I use these dies from the stamp set to cut out all the different florals that are in this 12 by 12 inch piece of designer paper. So once I cut all these florals out, I was able to make 14 different cards. So 7 of them have the purple in it, and the other 7 have the calypso coral and the petal pink. So today we're going to focus on the cards featuring these purple flowers, and then Sunday I will showcase the cards featuring the other color flowers. The other thing I want to point out is that there's a couple flowers that are on the edge of the designer paper. Well, I still use the die to cut out these pieces, and I used these edge pieces to create a variety of the different cards. So be sure to cut all these florals out that are kind of on the edge of the paper, because we are able to use those in our card making, and I'll show you how. So the first thing you want to do is just cut around all these flowers, because you cannot send this paper through your embossing machine in this fashion. So I just kind of took my scissors and just went around and just cut out around all these flowers that are on this designer paper. Okay, so once you just cut out around all the florals, then you are ready to take the dies and send these through your embossing machine to cut them all out. So that is what I'm going to do next. Okay, so here are all the beautiful florals that I cut from that designer series paper. And so I just used these 2 dies, and I was able to cut out all those flowers. And so I'm going to use the purple ones today, and I'm going to show you how to create 7 cards. And then I will showcase the pink and calypso colored flowers on Sunday. All right, so let's get started. Okay, so let's talk about the first 3 card ideas that I have to share with you. So each of these cards feature one of the large florals that I had cut from the designer paper. So when you cut up an entire 12 by 12 inch piece of designer paper, you're going to be able to get 3 of these purple ones, and you'll be able to create these 3 cards with that particular flower. So I'm going to only show you how to make 1 of these 3, but I will put all 7 of the card ideas into my free tutorial, which is linked in the description below this video. All right, so let's start by making this one. So for this card, you're going to start with a piece of white cardstock for the base of your card, and then you're going to cut a piece of designer paper, which is 1.5 by 4.25 inches. So it just goes right across the front of the card. So the next thing I did is I cut a 3 by 4 inch piece of designer paper. So all this paper is from the Favored Flowers Designer Series paper, that free Saleabration paper. So this is a 3 by 4 inch piece. And then I just have a 3.25 by 4.25 inch piece of Blackberry Bliss cardstock. So I'm just going to put these 2 pieces together, and this is going to become the background for our card. So that's the basic design for this particular card. So the next thing I did is I just took one of those large florals and I put some dimensionals on the back. And I'm just going to pop this up right on the top part of this designer paper. Next, I just created a little greeting using some of the images from the set. And I used this big long die, the label die that's in the set, to cut out my little hello. So I did a little heat embossing. I'm going to show you with the next card how to make this a little bit shorter. So you might notice that the die is longer than what I have here, but I'm going to show you how to shorten that to create this little greeting. So I'm just going to add this right on the bottom here. And then the last thing you can do is just embellish it. So I just added a little bow. I'm going to put a little glue dot up here. And I just took a piece of white twine and just tied it into a bow. And then you can just trim down the excess. And then you can embellish it with anything that you want. I'm just going to use some of my pearls just to add a couple embellishments here on this card. And that's it. So super simple and just really pretty. And then on the inside, you can use some more designer paper to just kind of decorate the inside. So that is one of the designs I created with this large floral. So let's just take a peek at the other designs. So here's another design that I created. And again, the instructions will be in the tutorial. And I just added a little designer paper on the inside. And then this is the third one. So I used up all three of those large florals that I cut from the designer paper. So for the second set of cards that I have here, this is where I used those pieces of designer paper that were on the edge. So I cut out the floral, but I left the edge because these flowers kind of went off the edge, so you don't get a full flower. But you can still use these flowers, even though they're on the edge of your designer paper, you can still use these flowers to create some beautiful cards, and that's what I did here. So we're going to focus on how to make this card. So I have the two florals that I cut from the designer paper, so we'll focus on that first, and then I'll show you some of the things I did on the inside of the card. Okay, so before we get into making the card, I'm going to show you how I created that shortened greeting. So basically you can see that this die is a lot larger than the hello. So what I did is I kind of scooted the die over so that I had, you know, just a little bit of space between the stamped greeting and the edge here. And I'm going to cut this out using my embossing machine. All right, so once you have this little greeting cut out, you can see I left a lot of space here on the edge. You're just going to take the die and you're going to lay it back over the top. And it's got some little ridges in here because it makes that little stitching around there. So you're just going to line it up kind of back in the ridges. And you're going to send this through the embossing machine again. Now you can just go halfway and just cut this little piece off, or you can run it through all the way. For this particular die, it's okay if you run it through all the way. All right, so here's what I have. I'll just take this off of here. So it just cuts off that extra piece here on the end, and it just shortens the die. So you can do this with any of your dies. I think most of them work very well this way. So just play around with it. It's kind of a fun way to use your dies and just create die shapes that are the size of your greeting or whatever image that you're using. All right, so now that you know how to create the greeting, let's go ahead and create this card. So I started with a 1.5 by 5.5 inch piece of designer paper, and I just put this all the way over on the left side of my card front. So I am using fresh freesia for my card front. So that's that light purple. And then I just used these cut off pieces, these pieces that were on the edge of the designer paper, just to decorate the card. So the only thing I did on this particular piece is just cut off this little piece that's sticking out. We don't really need that on there. So you just kind of take your scissors and cut that off. Okay, so I have a couple dimensionals on the back here, and I'm just going to line up the straight edge of this image. It's got a straight edge down here and a straight edge on the side. So I thought it was just a perfect place to put it, was kind of in this lower left corner. So it fits in there really nicely. And then this other piece I thought decorated the top part of the card really nicely. So I just added a couple dimensionals to the back and then added that to the top of the card. And then the last thing I did here is just add my greeting. So I have dimensionals on this side, and I have a little bit of glue on this side because the part with the glue actually is going to overhang onto the floral. So that's it. And then I just added a couple embellishments. So these embellishments are just a darker color. I thought it kind of went really nicely with this particular card. All right, so that is the second card. And then on the inside, I used up some of those other pieces. Like there's some cut off pieces from that I just used to decorate the inside of the card. So there's lots of different cutouts that you can use that were on the edge of the paper that you can use to decorate the inside of the card. So that is card number 2. So I'm going to bring them both back so that you can see. So this is the card I showed you how to make. And then this one, so I just used the split textures die and just kind of created a fun little look on the front of this card. So both cards are super fun. They're very easy to make. And again, the instructions will be in the tutorial, so be sure to download that. All right, and these last 2 card ideas just feature these smaller florals that were in the designer paper. So that's what I used to decorate these cards. And I'm going to show you how to make this one. And so don't forget, the instructions for this one will be in the tutorial. So let's focus on this one. So for this card, I started with a piece of Blackberry Bliss for the base of the card. And then I cut a piece of designer paper, which is 1.5 by 5.5, and a piece of Evening Evergreen cardstock, which is 1 3/4 by 5.5. And so all I'm going to do is just adhere these 2 pieces together. So we will just add this to the left side of the card front. Then I have a 2 by 4.5 inch piece of vellum. So I'm going to add this to the card front. And I'm just going to overlap onto the designer paper and onto the card front. And don't worry, we won't see any of that glue that you're seeing right now. So the next thing I did is I cut a 2.5 by 4 inch piece of designer paper. So this is that fresh freesia color. And this piece just kind of goes over to cover up that the glue that you saw on this piece. The next thing I did is just a little bit of heat embossing. And so this is Blackberry Bliss cardstock. And then these little pieces just kind of get tucked behind here. So I just tucked one on the top and one on the bottom, kind of like that. So I'm just going to add a little bit of glue here. And I like to just kind of arrange them the way I want them before I actually put them on the card. So we'll just add a little bit more glue. And then this one gets off-centered the other direction. All right, so once you have the flowers adhered to your greeting, then you can just add some dimensionals on the back, and then you can just pop this up right in the center of that designer paper. So it just makes a really pretty focal point for the card. And then of course you can embellish it with any kind of embellishments. I'm just going to use a couple pearls again. So super simple and just really pretty. All right, so the inside of this card, again, I just added some designer paper on the inside. And then the other card that I created, I did a little stamping in the background here and then added my focal point. And then on the inside, I added some designer paper and some cardstock. So lots of fun ways that you can use the florals in this particular designer paper. Okay, so there you go. Now you have 7 different card ideas featuring those beautiful florals that are in the Favored Flowers Designer Series paper. And if you enjoyed these card ideas, feel free to download the printable tutorial. You can find the link in the description below this video. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know by liking it and sharing it with your friends. And leave me a comment below to let me know what you enjoyed most about the video and the cards shared here today. Have a fun and creative day, my friends. Take care.